Hello, everybody. In the next few days, we're going to be spending a lot of time on nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy, NMR for short. And in fact, this technique is just so prevalent that we don't even bother saying the full name. Also, the word nuclear is a little bit difficult for me to say, so I'm not going to stumble through that for 3 days. And I want to point out that this technique is so important to a whole variety of fields. In addition to organic chemistry, it's used in biochemistry, molecular biology to a certain extent, analytical chemistry, and I'm not doing it justice just by rattling off a few other related fields. The medical profession makes use of this technique through a diagnostic imaging technique called MRI. I'm sure that's probably pretty common to most people these days as a way to image inside the human body. MRI, when it came out, it was called NMRI, Nuclear Magnetic Resonance Imaging. But the medical profession, they decided to drop the nuclear part of the name because they didn't want to scare people, their patients obviously, into thinking that there was some kind of radioactivity, something dangerous associated with the technique. It is a very, very safe technique. It just involves putting the human body into a very big magnet. And we'll get into the details about how this technique actually works. But in about 3 days, I hope that you're going to be able to impress your friends and your family with your appreciation of NMR and then to speak knowledgeably about how it relates to MRI. So if any of your family or friends needs an MRI, you can say, oh yeah, it's no big deal. It's just a big magnet. And that's the truth. But in reality, it is a big deal for us scientists because our eyes have been opened so much with the types of information that we can get out of an NMR spectrum. And I was thinking about an analogy as I got ready for today, and I think, this is my opinion, I think it's just very similar to what happened when we invented the telescope. Suddenly we had this very powerful tool that we could look out into the sky and develop a much deeper appreciation of the universe. So with NMR, now we have this technique that we can actually probe the structures of molecules, learn how very complicated compounds are assembled at the molecular level, and understand their structure. And also with an understanding of structure can come an understanding of their function. And there I'm speaking about an area that we won't get into, which is the use of NMR to characterize proteins, and in particular, study the structures of proteins. That was a huge game changer for the protein chemists. Before NMR, if you wanted to know the structure of a protein, you had to, one way, which was tough, was to try to grow a really nice crystal of that protein. Very hard task to do. You could spend a whole PhD thesis on the structure of just one protein. And then you had to get lucky with the crystallography, and it was just really, really challenging. This is how Watson and Crick and Rosalind Franklin were able to use crystallography to get the structure of DNA. But with NMR, it was just a fundamentally different approach to looking at molecular structure. So in addition to the protein chemists and organic chemists, of course, regarding structure, analytical chemists now have a really powerful technique to assay mixtures in solution. So there's a lot of quantitative techniques that involve NMR spectroscopy. These are techniques that I routinely use as part of my work as a professional in the pharmaceutical industry. NMR can be done on solutions, often referred to as liquids NMR, as well as solids. Solid-state NMR is another huge area, and we could spend semesters there. You could have multiple semesters of coursework on just NMR. So I have to figure out a way to boil this down into just 2 or 3 days. And what I would encourage everybody to do is to learn this technique very well. It will serve you in your careers as scientists. And with respect to the book chapter, pay attention to pretty much everything in chapter 13 of our textbook. I will let you know throughout my lectures what particular sections you can de-emphasize, but in general, that entire book chapter is going to be important for you to at least have read through. Alrighty, let's get going.